Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's the 1st of September 2025 and the time is 12:03 p.m. There you go. Half the day is sort of gone. Well, the morning's gone anyway. So I feel a bit weary today. I've not been breathing so well in my sleep the last couple of nights, and I don't know what the cause of that is. Just having a rough patch, I guess. So it's not so bad. I only stopped breathing 1.5 times an hour last night, and the night before 2 times an hour. But it is amazing how depleting it is. And here I went around for 23 years since my initial diagnosis, which means I went around for quite some decades before that, with obstructive sleep apnea, complaining about chronic fatigue and feeling weak and ill all the time. And yet, for 23 years, I fought my way through. Pushed myself out for dancing in the last 15 years. So, it's a bit astonishing what I've managed to accomplish as a veritable zombie, shuffling around with not a fully oxygenated body. And, the last 4 or 5 years with the silversmithing journey, it's quite impressive. I'm actually impressed with myself, what I've been managed to literally forge ahead with. And even though I'm on CPAP therapy, it'll be 14 months on the 4th of this month. It'll be 14 months. I'm still tired and I still kind of struggle most days, so a bit ironic that. But yes, we've had a few lovely days of sunshine and days of murky, miserable looking awful days. So I've even put the heater on. It's actually 19 degrees. It shouldn't be that cold, but it feels cold inside this house because it's all made out of asbestos. So there is that. Not a good insulator. So here I am sitting here living my best life and surviving and hoping to one day thrive, babies. Although I must say I thrived on Friday night. I really thrived and I had a lovely time. So there is that. Everyone was lovely to me. And, Mama T rides through everything, like a wild Mustang Quay who must not, cannot, and refuses to ever be truly tamed. You understand? It's how I survive and exist in this world, having my inner strength and my self-determination, my love of freedom. Right, now what is this? I've got to glue this. This earring keeps turning itself right around. It's supposed to face like that. Naughtiness. And I don't like gluing them because then they get all, glued up and ugly. What am I going to do? I have to think about that. Right, obviously, as you can tell by the way I'm fussing over them, I made these PowerShell inlaid into ebony wood that I carved those little square beads. I wanted round beads, but I gave up on the round beads because the bead cutting tools I had just smashed the ebony. It would just disintegrate, so I gave up. And I made square beads, and I'm very proud of it. Obviously, it's like fussing as if it were my own child, which it is not. It is not a child. It is a mere object that has a fair bit of energy went into it because I made it. Something lovely when you make your own things, like how you really appreciate the value and the time and the effort that goes into things. When you buy things in the shops, and of course there's some exquisite things you can buy, and they're not disparaging the the quality of goods in the shops, although a lot of that's decreased over the last decade or so by the gods. But, when you buy something exquisitely made like, Swarovski crystal or, beautiful designer, beautifully clothes made by proper trained seamstresses or tailors, where it's just every stitch is just art. There's something exquisite about it. It's a different feeling, and just things knocked together and thrown out en masse with no soul and no uniqueness to it. I should really get into learning how to sew properly. I've always had a phobia of sewing, and a feeling of absolute terror arises even doing just basic little sewing in my little sewing machine that Lynn bought for me. I've just done a bit of straight sewing, just made little bags, for my jewellery and things like that. I haven't made a garment yet because it's so terrifying and overwhelming. But, it would be nice to be able to make exquisite, artistic looking, cloaks and capes and wonderful frocks and things that you don't see in the shops, because everything's become so bland and ugly and mass-produced and lacks soul. I woke up this morning and the first thing that I wrote on Facebook in response to some meme or some video I posted was, we need to colour up our lives again. Oh yes, it was a YouTube video about how everything's become soulless and ugly, and even the architecture, and there's not enough beauty in the world. And I completely agree with that. I've been complaining about that since COVID came 5 years ago. I noticed it. It's like the whole world just went into this steep declension or decline and just turned ugly right before my eyes, and I was like, it's like living in a perpetual horror movie from which there's no escape from, because how does it end, people of Earth? How does it end? Three-Eye Atlas hurtling through space, and I'm not sure completely if that's another psychological operation or if it's real, but it's intriguing, isn't it? How will that end if that 46-kilometre rock actually positions itself next to our moon and sends out envoys or scouts to our planet? How will that end? Stuff of what sci-fi horror movies do. But anyway, I'm curious. I'm thinking about it, and it might promote a shift in consciousness. People actually choosing to be kinder and nicer to each other, and more loving, because there's nothing like the threat of complete, immolation and having all us humans knocked off our planet to make us choose to work together and align with each other across all countries and creeds and political divides. Something to think about. There's a big truck arriving for the building site with what looks like, I don't know what it is, some kind of cladding. Are you fighting, my boys? 3-1 Atlas will not like you fighting, my boys. I'm just making that up on the spot, but sounds good. Sounds good to me. Let there be peace in all worlds, paradigms, echelons, dimensions, multiverses, omniverses. There's been enough ugliness. I've survived far too much ugliness. I'm a bit over it, actually. Sometimes I fall into despair about the state of our world, because I never expected it to get this bad this quickly. I really didn't. I've always been a positive person hoping for a beautiful outcome. And the only way for us to bring about a beautiful outcome for our planet, for each other as a species, is each of us to take our little individual responsibilities and our little individual creativity and colour up our world and make everything beautiful again. Not great again like that madman in America, but just bring beauty and culture and life affirming and healthier ways of existing in the world. And how are we going to do that now? I don't know. But I guess it starts with going within and producing from within our own selves our better qualities, people of Earth. You know, making jewellery or art or music or literature or building homes or whatever your talents and skills and creativity bring forth. But wouldn't it be lovely if we all built lovely homes again that were stunning artifices of workmanship like the Baroque and the Renaissance period? Oh, that would be lovely. I live in another dimension sometimes. Don't mind me. But a psychiatrist once said to me, "You're interdimensional, Tanya." I really am. What can I say? So, on that note of being interdimensional and not choosing to surround myself in the beige and the bland and the voided out and sucked out and drained of all life force and joy and delight and excitement and chi and creativity and magic, let us continue reading The Hobbit, Chapter 8, Flies and Spiders. Which tells me this is one of the darker parts of the story, so I'll be creating and co-creating and yearning for even more light and joy and delight than ever. Yin and yang, people are there. Polarity. That tea is utterly tasteless and bland too. Should have left the bag in a bit longer, shouldn't I? Right, let us begin. I'll get serious now, people. We're ready. Mama T, Tanya, and Miss Five and I are ready. Boom, bam, boom, babies. They walked in single file. The entrance to the path was like a sort of arch leading into a gloomy tunnel made by two great trees that leant together, too old and strangled with ivy and hung with lichen to bear more than a few blackened leaves. The path itself was narrow and wound in and out among the trunks. Soon the light at the gate was like a little bright hole far behind, and quiet was so deep that their feet seemed to thump along while all the trees leaned over them and listened. As their eyes became used to the dimness, they could see a little way to either side in a sort of darkened green glimmer. Occasionally a slender beam of sun that had the luck to slip in through some opening in the leaves far above, and still more luck in not being caught in the tangled boughs and matted twigs beneath, stabbed down thin and bright before them. But this was seldom, and it soon ceased altogether. There were black squirrels in the wood As Bilbo's sharp, inquisitive eyes got used to seeing things, he could catch glimpses of them, whisking off the path and scuttling behind tree trunks. There were queer noises too, grunts, scufflings, and hurryings in the undergrowth, and among the leaves that lay piled endlessly thick in places on the forest floor. But what made the noises he could not see, and the noises you're hearing is Kermie sitting inside the cage with Bo in his cage. They're side by side like the best of friends. And Kermie's crunching on his own beak, which apparently is birdie body language for contentment. That's why I sort of was checking, because I thought, oh, he must be eating, you know, like making it so crunching noises, but no. Bo is snoozing and Kermie's crunching on his beak. Oh, well. We're in their space and their room, so we have to put up with their little noises. It's too miserable to be outside today. The nastiest things they saw were the cobwebs, dark, dense cobwebs with threads extraordinarily thick, often stretched from tree to tree, or tangled in the lower branches on either side of them. There were none stretched across the path, but whether because some magic kept it clear, or for what other reason, they could not guess. I really need to put oil on that chair too, don't I? Shall I do it now quickly? Why not? Let's not be irritated by annoying little things. I have the oil, Tuyangwana oil I use for my jewellery. So there's no excuse to not use it. I'll just see if I can find the bit that's grinding. I don't know what I'm looking at. It's all inside, isn't it? How do I do that? Well, I'll try that. I'll try the most obvious bit, which would be this. There's an actual chair that's doing the grinding now. Oh, dear goddess. Grinding, grinding. I don't know what I'm doing. But Mama T doesn't know what she's doing. She cooks. Well, no, it's this part. It's this part that's the problem. And back. And back on things. Right, let's just give it another swish. No, I didn't hit the spot, people. I have to have a proper look at it another time. You're not waiting on me to read stories and not under pressure. But I just wanted to see if I could just do a quick fix, but nothing's a quick fix, is it? Still, it's a very old chair, this. I got it for free from Facebook Marketplace. Somebody gave it away for free. And I've had it for quite some years, so, you know, it's done well. apart from the creaking and the groaning and bouncy, 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 bouncy. I don't normally bounce up and down. This is what oiling the squeaks does for you. It makes you a bit bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. All the men in the room went, oh my goodness, psychedelic dreamer, there you go again. Teasing us mercilessly. But it's not my intention. It just wasn't my intention. I just realised that it had other connotations, you know, if your mind goes that way. Which it doesn't mind what you do. Anyway, I relinquish what's left of my dignity. Yes, it's definitely the back that's doing the creakage. I'll maintain what's left of my dignity and we'll continue with the story before that. Creaks will happen. Shit creak without a paddle. I could swap over the chair though. That one probably squeaks as well though. I can't remember if it does or not. Well anyway, let us continue. Ah yes, whether it was magic that kept the paths clear of cobwebs, or for what other reason they could not guess. It was not long before they grew to hate the forest as heartily as they had hated the tunnels of the goblins, and it seemed to offer even less hope of any ending, but they had to go on and on, long after they were sick for a sight of the sun and the sky, and longed for the feel of wind on their faces. There was no movement of air down under the forest roof, and it was everlastingly still and dark and stuffy. Even the dwarves felt it, who were used to tunnelling and lived at times for long whiles without the light of the sun. But the hobbit, who liked holes to make a house in, but not to spend summer days in, felt that he was being slowly suffocated. I know that feeling. That's why when it's lovely sunny days, the birdie boys and the mama tea are outside in the sunshine. Well, it's not your day today, my boys. Looking quite miserable about it too. Do you want to see them? There they are. Looking quite grumpy. Look at them, just sitting there, very quietly and patiently. No garden today, my boys, because the weather sucks epic, hairy, birdie num balls. But Mama, we don't have balls. I'm using poetic license, Kermie. Don't be so pedantic, Kermie. Work with me, Kermie. And go. Ah, well. They're quite happy sitting there listening to my voice droning on in English. They don't understand a word of it, but probably because they're birdies, they feel the resonance and the vibration and the energy and the music of the language, you understand? Well, anyway, I like to delude myself. Kermie, you're a very handsome bird, and Bud is a very handsome bird too. They're both very vicious. He bit me yesterday, you want to see? Big chunk of munkers out of the top of my finger. I was not happy about that. Oh, he was savage. But anyway, that's what happens. That's what happens when you let the bone in your fingers. Getting hot now. I might have to turn the heater off. Turn the heater off. Mum's overheating now. We can't win, can we? We just can't win. It's a bit silly, Champagne. Yes, Kermie, it's a bit silly. Well, there we go. Oh, I really hate that groan of that chair. It sounds like it's dying with all my fat on top of it. actually is. Anyway, I'm still laughing about how when we had the earthquake a few Saturdays ago, the wheels on my chair were moving out from under me, and I was like, wait a minute, I didn't roll the chair. Who's rolling the chair? Then got such a shock, and I realised we were actually having an actual earthquake. Hilarious. Anyway, so the nights were the worst. It then became pitch dark. Not what you call pitch dark, but really pitch. So black you really could see nothing. Bilbo tried flapping his hand in front of his nose, but he could not see it at all. Well, perhaps it is not true to say that they could see nothing. They could see eyes. Oh, how funny I chose to wear these today. You see? Mummy T is a bit synchronous and psychic and congruent with the multiverses. Yes, I'm going to have to glue them so that they don't move around. Yes. I've probably complained about that before and I still haven't done it. Yes. They slept all closely huddled together and took it in turns to watch. And when it was Bilbo's turn, he could see gleams in the darkness round them, and sometimes pairs of yellow or red or green eyes would stare at him from a little distance and then slowly fade and disappear and slowly shine out again in another place. And sometimes they would gleam down from the branches just above him, and that was most terrifying. But the eyes that he liked the least were horrible, pale, bulbous sort of eyes. Insect eyes, he thought, not animal eyes, only they are much too big. Although it was not yet very cold, they tried lighting watch fires at night, but they soon gave that up. It seemed to bring hundreds and hundreds of eyes all round them, although the creatures, whatever they were careful never to let their bodies show in the little flicker of the flames. Worse still, it brought thousands of dark grey and black moths, some nearly as big as your hand, flapping and whirring around their ears. They could not stand that, nor the huge bats, black as a top hat, either. By that I think they mean shiny black, you know. They used to make the top hats in kind of a silken and shine it somehow. I think that's what he means. So they gave up fires and sat at night and dozed in the enormous, uncanny darkness. All this went on for what seemed to the hobbit ages upon ages, and he was always hungry, for they were extremely careful with their provisions. Even so, as days followed days, and still the forest seemed just the same, they began to get anxious. The food would not last forever. It was, in fact, already beginning to get low. They tried shooting at the squirrels, and they wasted many arrows before they managed to bring one down on the path. But when they roasted it, it proved horrible to taste, so they shot no more squirrels. They were thirsty too, for they had none too much water, and in all the time they had seen neither spring nor stream. This was their state when one day they found their path blocked by a running water. It flowed fast and strong, but not very wide across the way, and it was black, or looked it in the gloom. It was well that Bjorn had warned them against it, or they would have drunk from it, whatever its colour, and filled some of their empty skins at its bank. As it was, they only thought of how to cross it without wetting themselves in its water. There had been a bridge of wood across, but it had rotted and fallen, leaving only the broken posts near the bank. Bilbo, kneeling on the brink and peering forward, cried, "There is a boat against the far bank. Now why couldn't it have been this side?" "How far away do you think it is?" asked Thorin, for by now they knew Bilbo had the sharpest eyes among them. "Not at all far. I shouldn't think above 12 yards. 12 yards? I should have thought it was 30 at least, but my eyes don't see as well as they used to 100 years ago. Still, 12 yards is as good as a mile. We can't jump it, and we daren't try to wade or swim." "Can any of you throw a rope?" "What's the good of that? The boat is sure to be tied up, even if we could hook it, which I doubt." "I don't believe it is tied," said Bilbo, "though, of course, I can't be sure in this light, but it looks to me as if it was just drawn up on the bank, which is low just there where the path goes down into the water." "Dorry is the strongest, but Fili is the youngest and still has the best sight," said Thorin. "Come here, Fili, and see if you can see the boat Mr. Baggins is talking about." Fili thought he could. So, when he had stared a long while to get an idea of the direction, the others brought him a rope. They had several with them, and on the end of the longest they fastened one of the large iron hooks they had used for catching their packs to the straps about their shoulders. Fili took this in his hand and balanced it for a moment, and then flung it across the stream. Splash! It fell into the water. "Not far enough," said Bilbo, who was peering forward. "A couple of feet, and you would have dropped it on the boat. Try again. I don't suppose the magic is strong enough to hurt you if you just touch a bit of wet rope. Feely picked up the hook when he had drawn it back, rather doubtfully all the same. This time he threw it with greater strength. "Steady," said Bilbo. "You have thrown it right into the wood on the other side now. Draw it back gently." Feely hauled the rope back slowly, and after a while Bilbo said, "Carefully, it is lying on the boat. Let's hope the hook will catch." It did. The rope went taut and Feely pulled in vain. Keely came to his help, and then Owen and Glowen. They tugged and tugged, and suddenly they all fell over on their backs. Bilbo was on the lookout, however, caught the rope, and with a piece of stick fended off the little black boat as it came rushing across the stream. "Help!" he shouted, and Balin was just in time to seize the boat before it floated off down the current. "It was tied after all," said he, looking at the snapped painter that was still dangling from it. "That was a good pull, my lads, and a good job that our rope was stronger." "Who'll cross first?" asked Bilbo. "I shall," said Thorin, "and you will come with me, and Feely and Balin. That's as many as the boat will hold at a time. After that, Keely and Owen and Glowen and Dorry, next Orry and Norry, Byfor and Beaufort, and last Dwalin and Bombor." "I'm always last, and I don't like it," said Bombor. "It's somebody else's turn today." "You should not be so fat. As you are, you must be with the last and lightest boatload. Don't start grumbling against orders, or something bad will happen to you." "There aren't any oars. How are you going to push the boat back to the far bank?" asked the hobbit. "Give me another length of rope and another hook," said Feely, and when they had got it ready, he cast it into the darkness ahead and as high as he could throw it. Since it did not fall down again, they saw that it must have stuck in the branches. "Get in now," said Feely, "and one of you haul on the rope that is stuck in a tree on the other side. One of the others must keep hold of the hook we used at first, and when we are safe on the other side, he can hook it on, and you can draw the boat back." In this way they were all soon on the far bank, safe across the enchanted stream. Dwalin had just scrambled out with the coiled rope on his arm, and Bombor, still grumbling, was getting ready to follow, when something bad did happen. There was a flying sound of hooves on the path ahead. Out of the gloom came suddenly the shape of a flying deer. It charged into the dwarves and bowled them over, then gathered itself for a leap. High it sprang and cleared the water with a mighty jump, but it did not reach the other side in safety. Thorin was the only one who had kept his feet and his wits. As soon as they had landed, he had bent his bow and fitted an arrow in case any hidden guardian of the boat appeared. Now he sent a swift and sure shot into the leaping beast. As it reached the further bank, it stumbled. The shadows swallowed it up, but they heard the sound of hooves quickly falter and then go still. Before they could shout in praise of the shot, however, a dreadful wail from Bilbo put all thoughts of venison out of their minds. "Bombur has fallen in! Bombur is drowning!" he cried. 'Twas only too true. Bombur had only 1 foot on the land when the hart bore down on him and sprang over him. He had stumbled, thrusting the boat away from the bank, and then toppled back into the dark water, his hands slipping off the slimy roots at the edge, while the boat span slowly off and disappeared. "What are you doing, my little baby boys? You're very quiet. Very, very quiet. Bo was singing this morning, weren't you, Bo? He sang a lovely cockatiel song." "Yes, he did. He really does sing lovely songs." Right. We could still see his hood above the water when they ran to the bank. Quickly, they flung a rope with a hook towards him. His hand caught it, and they pulled him to the shore. He was drenched from hair to boots, of course, but that was not the worst. When they laid him on the bank, he was already fast asleep, with one hand clutching the rope so tight that they could not get it from his grasp. And fast asleep he remained, in spite of all they could do. They were still standing over him, cursing their ill luck and Bombur's clumsiness, and lamenting the loss of the boat, which made it impossible for them to go back and look for the hart, when they became aware of the dim blowing of horns in the wood and the sound as of dogs baying far off. Then they all fell silent, and as they sat, it seemed they could hear the noise of a great hunt going by to the north of the path, though they saw no sign of it. There they sat for a long while and did not dare to make a move. Bombur slept on with a smile on his fat face, as if he no longer cared for all the troubles that vexed them. Suddenly on the path ahead appeared some white deer, a hind, and fawns as snowy white as the hart had been dark. They glimmered in the shadows. Before Thorin could cry out, 3 of the dwarves had leapt to their feet and loosed off arrows from their bows. None seemed to find their mark. The deer turned and vanished in the trees as silently as they had come, and in vain the dwarves shot their arrows after them. "Stop! Stop!" shouted Thorin, but it was too late. The excited dwarves had wasted their last arrows, and now the bows that Beorn had given them were useless. I think they would have gone back and pulled the arrows out and preserved them. They were really quite wasteful, weren't they? I guess it would take too much time to run back and chase after all the arrows, retrieve them all. arrows take a long time to make, you understand. I bloody well would have been retrieving them. Imagine having to make a whole new set of arrows each time you went hunting. Well, anyway, I'm not sure how that all works. When I did archery, it was at an archery range, and all my arrows missed their mark because I'm like half bloody blind or mixed vision or whatever they called it, and it's easy to retrieve the arrows. I've been stuck in dead animals in some forest or field or meadow somewhere. Well, anyway, I wonder what the Native Americans used to do to get their arrows back. Maybe they just had a huge supply each time, because maybe the whole tribe just made sure there was plenty of arrows. Got to think about that, how that must have worked out. It's a problem, isn't it? Running out of your ammunition of choice. They were a gloomy party that night, and the gloom gathered still deeper on them in the following days. They had crossed the enchanted stream, but beyond it, the path seemed to straggle on just as before, and in the forest they could see no change. Yet, if they had known more about it, and considered the meaning of the hunt and the white deer that had appeared upon their path, they would have known that they were at last drawing towards the eastern edge, and would soon have come, if they could have kept up their courage and their hope, to thinner trees and places where the sunlight came again. But they did not know this, and they were burdened with the heavy body of Bombor, which they had to carry along with them as best they could, taking the wearisome task in turns of 4 each, while the others shed their packs. If these had not become all too light in the last few days, they would never have managed. But a slumbering and smiling Bombor was a poor exchange for packs filled with food, however heavy. Poor Bombor. In a few days, a time came when there was practically nothing left to eat or to drink. Nothing wholesome could they see growing in the wood, only funguses and herbs with pale leaves and unpleasant smell. About 4 days from the enchanted stream, they came to a part where most of the trees were beeches. They were at first inclined to be cheered by the change, for here there was no undergrowth and the shadow was not so deep. There was a greenish light to either side of the path, yet the light only showed them endless lines of straight grey trunks, like the pillars of some huge twilight hall. There was a breath of air and a noise of wind, but it had a sad sound. A few leaves came rustling down to remind them that outside autumn was coming on. Their feet ruffled along the dead leaves of countless other autumns that drifted over the banks of the path from the deep red carpets of the forest. Still Bombor slept, and they grew very weary. At times they heard disquieting laughter. Sometimes there was singing in the distance too. The laughter was the laughter of fair voices, and not of goblins. And the singing was beautiful, even though it was eerie and strange, and they were not comforted. Rather they hurried on from those parts with what strength they had left. Fun boys. What am I stuck on here? I need a bigger house or my own studio space where I can keep all the stuff and reclaim what's left of my house back. Can't afford that though. Dream on, psychedelic dreamer. Just keep dreaming. One day you'll wake up in another paradigm. Another one. It'll be in a galaxy far, far away. But anyway, we won't think about that. We'll make do with what we've got and we'll be grateful for it because we were in worse situations. So we know to value what needs to be valued and cherished and cared for and respected and nurtured and appreciated, people of Earth. Gratitude and attitude is everything. So don't mind me grumbling about my creaky chair, my hemmed in space and, studio and my birds, and I'm actually living the best life I've ever lived. Pretty much. I mean, things could be better, of course, but pretty much. Things are pretty good, I'm alive. I'm over that terrible flu and I've still got a bit of gurgling and gargling to contend with and asthma, but I'm doing okay. I am. I'm doing okay. All things told. Right. 2 days later, they found their path going downwards, and before long, they were in a valley filled almost entirely with a mighty growth of oaks. Is there no end to this accursed forest? Said Thorin. Somebody must climb a tree and see if he can get his head above the roof and have a look round. The only way is to choose the tallest tree that overhangs the path. Of course, somebody meant Bilbo. They chose him because, to be of any use, the climber must get his head above the topmost leaves, and so he must be light enough for the highest and slenderest branches to bear him. Poor Mr. Baggins had never had much practice in climbing trees, but they hoisted him up into the lowest branches of an enormous oak which grew right out on into the path, and up he had to go as best he could. He pushed his way through the tangled twigs with many a slap in the eye. He was greened and grimed from the old bark of the greater boughs. What's going on here, boys? There's a lot of scuffling and kerfuffling and snarling and growling and sneering. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I'm watching you, Tammy. Why are you getting so aggressive all of a sudden? You were just perfectly lovely before. Mad bloody bird. They're mad, aren't they? Some madness overcomes them. Right, where were we? He was green and grimed from the old bark of the greater boughs. More than once he slipped and caught himself just in time, and at last, after the dreadful struggle in a difficult place where there seemed to be no convenient branches at all, he got near the top. All the time he was wondering whether there were spiders in the tree and how he was going to get down again, except by falling. Come on, Kermie. Come on, that's it. Come out. Come out, leave the bow alone. Out you come. No. No. Oh, you little swine. Okay, we're choosing to be a little swine. There you go. Can birdies be swine? No, they can only be bad birds. Very bad birds. In the end, he poked his head above the roof of leaves, and then he found spiders all right. But they were only small ones of ordinary size, and they were after the butterflies. Bilbo's eyes were nearly blinded by the light. He could hear the dwarfs shouting up at him from far below, but he could not answer. It's one of my favourite songs, Blinding Lights, actually. But he could not answer, only hold on and blink. The sun was shining brilliantly, and it was a long while before he could bear it. When he could, he saw all round him a sea of dark green, ruffled here and there by the breeze, and there were everywhere hundreds of butterflies. I expect they were a kind of purple emperor, a butterfly that loves the tops of oak woods. But these were not purple at all. They were a dark, velvety black, without any markings to be seen. He looked at the black emperors for a long time and enjoyed the feel of the breeze in his hair and on his face. But at length the cries of the dwarfs, who were now simply stamping with impatience down below, reminded him of his real business. Getting all fired up all of a sudden. I wonder why. Maybe we can get another earthquake. Same level of agitation. Probably just frustrated that he can't be out in the garden today. It was no good. Gaze as much as he might, he could see no end to the trees and the leaves in any direction. His heart, that had been lightened by the sight of the sun and the feel of the wind, sank back into his toes. There was no food to go back to down below. Actually, as I have told you, they were not far off the edge of the forest, and if Bilbo had had the sense to see it, the tree he had climbed, although it was tall in itself, was standing near the bottom of a wide valley, so that from its top the tree seemed to swell up all round like the edges of a great bowl, and he could not expect to see how far the forest lasted. Still, he did not see this, and he climbed down, full of despair. It was a strange day. I was cold and had the heater on, and now I'm boiling hot and had to open the window. It's odd, isn't it, people are worse? Is it menopause or is it the actual weather? Hard to tell. Hard to tell sometimes. Separate myself from the rest of the cosmos, you understand. It's starting to feel like a bit of a hot flush. I'm all tingly in my cheeks. Tingly in my cheeks. Well, disrobe one garment. That's all that's going, boys. Right. That's a bit better. Don't worry, in 5 minutes I'll be complaining I'm cold. It's just so difficult sometimes. It really is. Still he did not see this, and he climbed down, full of despair. Pardon me. He got to the bottom again at last, scratched, hot and miserable, and he could not see anything in the gloom below when he got there. His report soon made the others as miserable as he was. The forest goes on forever and ever and ever in all directions. Whatever shall we do? And what is the use of sending a hobbit? They cried, as if it was his fault. They did not care twopence about the butterflies, and were only made more angry when he told them of the beautiful breeze, which they were too heavy to climb up and feel. That night they ate their very last scraps and crumbs of food, and next morning, when they woke, the first thing they noticed was that they were still gnawingly hungry, and the next thing was that it was raining, and that here and there the drip of it was dropping heavily on the forest floor. That only reminded them that they were also parchingly thirsty, without doing anything to relieve them. You cannot quench a terrible thirst by standing under giant oaks and waiting for a chance drip to fall on your tongue. The only scrap of comfort there was came unexpectedly from Bombor. He woke up suddenly and sat up, scratching his head. He could not make out where he was at all, nor why he felt so hungry, for he had forgotten everything that had happened since they started their journey that May morning long ago. The last thing that he remembered was the party at the Hobbit's house, and they had great difficulty in making him believe their tale of all the many adventures they had had since. When he heard there was nothing to eat, he sat down and wept, for he felt very weak and wobbly in the legs. "Why ever did I wake up?" he cried. "I was having such beautiful dreams. I dreamed I was walking in a forest rather like this one, only lit with torches on the trees and lamps swinging from the branches and fires burning on the ground, and there was a great feast going on forever. A woodland king was there with a crown of leaves, and there was a merry singing, and I could not count or describe the things there were to eat and drink. You need to try, said Thorin. In fact, if you can't talk, you need not try, said Thorin. In fact, if you can't talk about something else, you had better be silent. We are quite annoyed enough with you as it is. If you hadn't waked up, we should have left you to your idiotic dreams in the forest. You are no joke to carry, even after weeks of short commons. There was nothing now to be done but to tighten the belts round their empty stomachs and hoist their empty sacks and packs and trudge along the track without any great hope of ever getting to the end before they lay down and died of starvation. This they did all that day, going very slowly and wearily, while Bombur kept on wailing that his legs would not carry him and that he wanted to lie down and sleep. No, you don't, they said. Let your legs take their share. We have carried you far enough. All the same, he suddenly refused to go a step further and flung himself on the ground. Go on if you must, he said. I'm just going to lie here and sleep and dream of food. And if I can't get it any other way, I hope I never wake up again. At that very moment, Balin, who was a little while ahead, called out, What was that? I thought I saw a twinkle of light in the forest. Yes, I'm watching you, Kenny. I'm watching you being mean to little Bo, and little Bo holding his ground like a champion. It's a very brave bird. It reminds me of the Mama Deer. Small but mighty, a bit fierce if you antagonise us. Exhibit A. Well, I wasn't really antagonising him, I was just trying to talk to him and chomped me. Little grey bastard. But anyway, I shall forgive him because he's my bird, he'll understand. The things you tolerate from the entities that you love, or at least like, you wouldn't tolerate it from any other creature, would you? It would not be abided at all. But anyway, on we go with the story. They all looked, and a longish way off, it seemed, they saw a red twinkle in the dark. Then another and another sprang out beside it. Even Bombur got up, and they hurried along then, not caring if it was trolls or goblins. The light was in front of them and to the left of the path, and when at last they had drawn level with it, it seemed plain that torches and fires were burning under the trees, but a good way off their track. It looks as if my dreams were coming true, gasped Bombur, puffing up behind. He wanted to rush straight off into the wood after the lights, but the others remembered only too well the warnings of the wizard and of Beorn. A feast would be no good if we never got back alive from it, said Thorin. But without a feast, we shan't remain alive much longer anyway, said Bombur, and Bilbo heartily agreed with him. They argued about it backwards and forwards for a long while, until they agreed at length to send out a couple of spies to creep near the lights and find out more about them. But then they could not agree on who was to be sent. No one seemed anxious to run the chance of being lost and never finding his friends again. In the end, in spite of warnings, hunger decided them, because Bombo kept on describing all the good things that were being eaten, according to his dream, in the woodland forest. So they all left the path and plunged into the forest together. After a good deal of creeping and crawling, they peered round the trunks and looked into a clearing where some trees had been felled and the ground levelled. There were many people there, elvish-looking folk, all dressed in green and brown and sitting on sawn rings of the felled trees in a great circle. There was a fire in their midst, and there were torches fastened to some of the trees round about. But, most splendid sight of all, they were eating and drinking and laughing merrily. The smell of the roast meats was so enchanting that, without waiting to consult one another, every one of them got up and scrambled forwards into the ring with the one idea of begging for some food. One should not eat fairy food, just say. Ever, if you ever get lured into a fairy ring, do not eat or drink. That's the law, L-O-R-E. Is it true? You never know. But why take the chance? The reason being you get trapped in the fairy realm and you never come back to your normal reality or dimensionality or 3D reality. It's probably what's wrong with me actually. It's probably what I've done. I've gone somewhere to a party somewhere and eaten the wrong bloody food, haven't I? Stuck in this weird dark epoch. You're eating apple, little Kermie, speaking of eating food. Oh, there's a happy birthday today. He's perked up, thank the gods. No sooner had the first stepped into the clearing than all the lights went out as if by magic. Somebody kicked the fire and it went up in rockets of glittering sparks and vanished. They were lost in a completely lightless dark, and they could not even find one another, and not for a long time at any rate. After blundering frantically in the gloom, falling over logs, bumping crash into trees, and shouting and calling till they must have waked everything in the forest for miles, at last they managed to gather themselves in a bundle and count themselves by touch. By that time they had, of course, quite forgotten in what direction the path lay, and they were all hopelessly lost, at least till morning. There was nothing for it but to settle down for the night where they were. They did not even dare to search on the ground for scraps of food, for fear of becoming separated again. But they had not been lying long, and Bilbo was only just getting drowsy when Dorry, whose turn it was to watch first, said in a loud whisper, "The lights are coming out again over there, and there are more than ever of them." Up they all jumped. There, sure enough, not far away, were scores of twinkling lights, and they heard the voices and the laughter quite plainly. They crept slowly towards them in a single line, each touching the back of the one in front. When they got near, Thorin said, "No rushing forward this time. No one is to stir from hiding till I say. I shall send Mr. Baggins alone first to talk to them. They won't be frightened of him." "What about me of them?" thought Bilbo. "And anyway, I hope they won't do anything nasty to him." When they got to the edge of the circle of lights, they pushed Bilbo suddenly from behind. Before he had time to slip on his ring, he stumbled forward into the full blaze of the fire and torches. It was no good. Out went all the lights again, and complete darkness fell. If it had been difficult collecting themselves before, it was far worse this time. And they simply could not find the hobbit. Every time they counted themselves, it only made 13. They shouted and called, "Bilbo Baggins! Hobbit! You dratted hobbit! Hi! Hobbit! Confusticate you! Where are you?" and other things of that sort, which there was no answer. They were just giving up hope when Dorry stumbled across them by sheer luck. In the dark he fell over what he thought was a log, and he found it was the hobbit, curled up, fast asleep. It took a deal of shaking to wake him, and when he was awake he was not pleased at all. "I was having such a lovely dream," he grumbled, "all about having a most gorgeous dinner. Good heavens, he has gone like Bombur," they said. "Don't tell us about dreams. Dream dinners aren't any good, and we can't share them." "They are the best I am likely to get in this beastly place," he muttered as he lay down beside the dwarfs and tried to go back to sleep and find his dream again. But that was not the last of the lights in the forest. Later, when the night must have been getting old, Kili, who was watching then, came and roused them all again, saying, "There's a regular blaze of light begun not far away. Hundreds of torches and many fires must have been lit suddenly and by magic. And hark to the singing and the harps." After lying and listening for a while, they found they could not resist the desire to go nearer and try once more to get help. Up they got again, and this time the result was disastrous. The feast that they now saw was greater and more magnificent than before. And at the head of a long line of feasters sat a woodland king with a crown of leaves upon his golden hair, very much as Bombur had described the figure in his dream. The elvish folk were passing bowls from hand to hand across the fires, and some were harping and many were singing. Their gleaming hair was twisted with flowers. Green and white gems glinted on their collars and their belts, and their faces and their songs were filled with mirth. Loud and clear and fair were those songs, and out stepped Thorin into their midst. Dead silence fell in the middle of a word. Out went all light. The fires leapt up in black smokes. Ashes and cinders were in the eyes of the dwarves, and the wood was filled again with their clamour and their cries. Bilbo found himself running round and round, as he thought, and calling, Dorry, Norry, Orry, Owen, Blowen, Feely, Keely, Bombor, Bifur, Bofor, Dwalin, Balin, Thorin Oakenshield, while people he could not see or feel were doing the same all around him, with an occasional Bilbo thrown in. But the cries of the others got steadily further and fainter. And though after a while it seemed to him they changed to yells and cries for help in the far distance, all noise at last died right away. Don't do that, Kermit, that's not nice. I saw that. All noise at last died right away, and he felt alone in complete silence and darkness. I might have to separate them. They're getting nasty. What you doing, boys? What's going on? You're getting all head up. Kermie, you've got your own cage. A very beautiful cage, I might add. Yes, it costs me a fair bit of money too. Oh, we have to turn on the power. Right. And you don't need to be in there stalking the bow. You need to be in your own cage, being your own Kermie boy, living your best life. Am I right, people there? This thing does not recognise that I have turned the power on. Right, what's going on, boys? Alright, that was one of his most miserable moments, but he soon made up his mind that it was no good trying to do anything till day came with some little light, and quite useless to go blundering about, tiring himself out with no hope of any breakfast to revive him. So he sat himself down with his back to a tree, and not for the last time fell to thinking of his far distant hobbit hole with its beautiful pantries. He was deep in thoughts of bacon and eggs and toast and butter when he felt something touch him. Something like a strong, sticky string was against his left hand, and when he tried to move, he found that his legs were already wrapped in the same stuff, so that when he got up, he fell over. Then the great spider, who had been busy tying him up while he dozed, came from behind him and came at him. He could only see the thing's eyes, but he could feel its hairy legs as it struggled to wind its abominable threads around and round him. It was lucky that he had come to his senses in time. Soon he would not have been able to move at all. As it was, he had a desperate fight before he got free. He bet the creature off with his hands. It was trying to poison him to keep him quiet, as small spiders do to flies, until he remembered his sword and drew it out. Then the spider jumped back, and he had time to cut his legs loose. After that, it was his turn to attack. The spider evidently was not used to things that carried such stings at their sides, or it would have hurried away quicker. Bilbo came at it before it could disappear and struck it with a sword in the eyes. Then it went mad and leapt and danced and flung out its legs in horrible jerks, like the Mamatoo doing the mosh, until he killed it with another stroke, and then he fell down and remembered nothing more for a long while. There was the usual dim grey light of the forest day about him when he came to his senses. The spider lay dead beside him, and his sword blade was stained black. Somehow, the killing of the giant spider, all alone by himself in the dark, without the help of the wizard or the dwarves or of anyone else, made a great difference to Mr. Baggins. He felt a different person and much fiercer and bolder in spite of an empty stomach as he wiped his sword on the grass and put it back into its sheath. "I will give you a name," he said to it, "and I shall call you Sting." After that, he set out to explore. The forest was grim and silent. Pardon me. But, obviously, he had, first of all, to look for his friends, who were not likely to be very far off, unless they had been made prisoners by the elves, or worse things. Bilbo felt that it was unsafe to shout, and he stood a long while, wondering in what direction the path lay, and in what direction he should go first to look for the dwarves. Oh, Why did we not remember Beorn's advice and Gandalf's? He lamented. What a mess we are in now. We, I only wish it was we. It is horrible being all alone. In the end, he made as good a guess as he could at the direction from which the cries for help had come in the night, and by luck he was born with a good share of it. He guessed more or less right, as you will see. Having made up his mind, he crept along as cleverly as he could. Hobbits are clever at quietness, especially in woods, as I have already told you. Also, Bilbo had slipped on his ring before he started. That is why the spiders neither saw nor heard his coming. He had picked his way stealthily for some distance when he noticed a place of dense black shadow ahead of him, black even for that forest, like a patch of midnight that had never been cleared away. As he drew nearer, he saw that it was made by spider webs, one behind and over and tangled with another. Suddenly he saw too that there were spiders, huge and horrible, sitting in the branches above him. And ring or no ring, he trembled with fear lest they should discover him. Standing behind a tree, he watched a group of them for some time, and then in the silence and stillness of the wood, he realized that these loathsome creatures were speaking one to another. Their voices were a sort of thin creaking and hissing, but he could make out many of the words that they said. They were talking about the dwarfs. It was a sharp struggle, but worth it, said one. What nasty, thick skins they have, to be sure, but I'll wager there is good juice inside. Aye, they'll make fine eating when they've hung a bit, said another. Don't hang 'em too long, said a third. They're not as fat as they might be. Been feeding none too well of late, I should guess. Kill 'em, I say, hissed a fourth. Kill 'em now and hang 'em dead for a while. They're dead now, I'll warrant, said the first. That they are not. I saw one a-struggling just now. Just coming round again, I should say, after a beautiful sleep. I'll show you. With that, one of the fat spiders ran along a rope till it came to a dozen bundles hanging in a row from a high branch. Bilbo was horrified now that he noticed them for the first time dangling in the shadows, to see a dwarfish foot sticking out of the bottoms of some of the bundles, or here and there the tip of a nose, or a bit of beard, or a hood. To the fattest of these bundles the spider went. It is poor old Bombore, I'll bet, thought Bilbo, and nipped hard at the nose that stuck out. There was a muffled yelp inside, and a toe shot up and kicked the spider straight and hard. There was life in Bombore still. There was a noise like the kicking of a flabby football, and the enraged spider fell off the branch, only catching itself with its own thread just in time. The others laughed. "You were quite right," they said. "The meat's alive and kicking." "I'll soon put an end to that," hissed the angry spider, climbing back on to the branch. Bilbo saw that the moment had come when he must do something. He could not get up at the brutes, and he had nothing to shoot with. But, looking about, he saw that in this place there were many stones lying in what appeared to be a now dry little watercourse. Bilbo was a pretty fair shot with a stone, and it did not take him long to find a nice, smooth, egg-shaped one that fitted his hand cosily. As a boy, he used to practice throwing stones at night until rabbits and squirrels and even birds got out of his ways quick as lightning if they saw him stoop, and even grown up he had still spent a deal of his time at quoits, dart throwing, shooting at the wand, bowls, ninepins, and other quiet games of the aiming and throwing sort. Indeed, he could do lots of things besides blowing smoke rings, asking riddles, and cooking that I haven't had time to tell you about. There is no time now. While he was picking up stones, the spider had reached Bombore, and soon he would have been dead. At that moment, Bilbo threw. The stone struck the spider plunk on the head, and it dropped senseless off the tree, flopped to the ground with all its legs curled up. The next stone went whizzing through a big web, snapping its cords and taking off the spider sitting in the middle of it. Whack! Dead. After that, there was a deal of commotion in the spider colony, and they forgot the dwarfs for a bit, I can tell you. They could not see Bilbo, but they could make a guess at the direction from which the stones were coming. As quick as lightning, they came running and swinging towards the hobbit, flinging out their long threads in all directions till the air seemed full of waving snares. Bilbo, however, soon slipped away to a different place. The idea came to him to lead the furious spiders further and further away from the dwarfs, if he could, to make them curious, excited, and angry all at once. When about 50 had gone off to the place where he had stood before, he threw some more stones at these, and at others that had stopped behind. Then, dancing among the trees, he began to sing a song to infuriate them and bring them all after him, and also to let the dwarfs hear his voice. This is what he sang. Old fat spider spinning in a tree. Old fat spider can't see me. At a cop, or won't you stop your spinning and look for me? Old Tom Noddy, oh big body, old Tom Noddy can't spy me. At a cop, down you drop. You'll never catch me up your tree. Not very good, perhaps, but then you must remember he had to make it up himself on the spur of a very awkward moment. It did what he wanted anyway. As he sang, he threw some more stones and stamped. Practically all the spiders in the place came after him. Some dropped to the ground, others raced along the branches, swung from tree to tree, or cast new ropes across the dark spaces. They made for his noise far quicker than he had expected. They were frightfully angry. Quite apart from the stones, no spider has ever liked being called Attercock, and Tom Noddy, of course, is insulting to anybody. Off Bilbo scuttled to a fresh place, but several of the spiders had run now to different points in the glade where they lived, and were busy spinning webs across all the spaces between the tree stems. Very soon the hobbit would be caught in a thick fence of them all round him. That at least was the spider's idea. Standing now in the middle of the hunting and spinning insects, Bilbo plucked up his courage and began a new song. Lazy Lob and Crazy Cob are weaving webs to wind me. I am far more sweet than other meat, but still they cannot find me. Here I am, a naughty little fly. You are fat and lazy. You cannot trap me, though you try. In your cobwebs, crazy. Oh, that had a jaw still hurts. Never mind. With that, he turned and found that the last space between two tall trees had been closed with a web, but luckily not a proper web. Only great strands of double-thick spider rope hung hastily backwards and forwards from trunk to trunk. Out came his little sword. He slashed the threads to pieces and went off singing. The spiders saw the sword, though I don't suppose they knew what it was, and at once the whole lot of them came hurrying after the hobbit along the ground and the branches, hairy legs waving, nippers and spinners snapping, eyes popping, full of wrath and rage. They followed him into the forest until Bilbo had gone as far as he dared. Then, quieter than a mouse, he stole back. He had precious little time, he knew, before the spiders were disgusted and came back to their trees where the dwarfs were hung. In the meanwhile, he had to rescue them. The worst part of the job was getting up to the long branch where the bundles were dangling. I don't suppose he would have managed it if a spider had not luckily left a rope hanging down. With its help, though it stuck to his hand and hurt him, he scrambled up only to meet an old, slow, wicked, fat-bodied spider who had remained behind to guard the prisoners and had been busy pinching them to see which was the juiciest to eat. It had thought of starting the feast while the others were away, but Mr. Baggins was in a hurry, and before the spider knew what was happening, it felt his sting and rolled off the branch, dead. Bilbo's next job was to loose a dwarf. What was he to do? If he cut the string which hung him up, the wretched dwarf would tumble thump to the ground a good way below. Wriggling along the branch, which made all the poor dwarfs dance and dangle like ripe fruit, he reached the first bundle. Feely or Keely, he thought, by the tip of a blue hood sticking out at the top. Most likely Feely, he thought, by the tip of a long nose poking out of the winding threads. He managed, by leaning over, to cut most of the strong, sticky threads that bound him round, and then, sure enough, with a kick and a struggle, most of Feely emerged. I am afraid Bilbo actually laughed at the sight of him jerking his stiff arms and legs as he danced on the spider string under his armpits, just like one of those funny toys, bobbing on a wire. Do you want to see a funny toy that bobs on a wire? Mama T's got it all going on. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. My beautiful friend from Israel, Tali Hukman Rudi, whose husband passed away a few days ago now. I'm not sure, I can't remember if it's a week already, but anyway, not so long ago, my beautiful friend John, who was Dutch, she bought this for my daughter Crystal when she was a baby, and it's in German, it's called a Humpelmann, and you pull the string and it does this. And I've repaired it a few times over the years, which is why his legs are a bit skewer, but I don't know why, but I kept it. Crystal probably forgot to take it when she moved out. And even the little nails I hammered in to hold them together are all rusted. And you see, I keep these little memories of people, and it's very sentimental, but also a bit odd, quite frankly. It's why my house looks like a veritable museum. Honestly, I've still got toys up there from my childhood. But anyway, it's nice to have silly whimsical things around the house. I've always liked that. Whimsy and nonsense and creativity and hoarding and clutter. but things that spark joy and delight and memories. And I've actually decluttered a lot over the years. I got rid of most of my dolls, and I've only kept a few things. But that I would never part with because it was sweet. And one day Crystal might reclaim it if she ever talks to me again, by the gods. But anyway, I guess she'll reclaim it when I'm dead. Very likely. Sometimes it's the only way you get to reclaim your things. My mother had kept quite a few of things, actually stolen from me, mind you, which is wicked of her. And they came back to me when she died, and I found that incredibly ironic, actually. Incredibly ironic. What's meant to be yours comes back to you. Remember that. That's also true with love relationships. If it's meant to be yours, that person finds their way to you and stays. Like an octopus on your face, but not as smothering or controlling, by the way. Oh, I hate that. I hate that. But you know what I'm saying. If there's a real love out there and it's meant to find you, that wonderful personage out there somewhere, it happens, people. I've been waiting 60 years for it to happen, but it happens. Anyway, you mustn't wallow in old woundings. But you know, I've had that proven to me many times over the years. If you're meant to have something, it manifests. It might take 20 years, but things come to you, and you must never give up on the dream. The manifesting the wonderful, beautiful dream. Right, that's why my nickname is the Psychedelic Dreamer, because I'm very good at dreaming and manifesting from time to time. And the gods are smiling upon me and luck is running my way. Anyway, I've lost my spot. Where were we? Ah, yes, just like one of those funny toys bobbing on a wire. Somehow or other, Ophelia was got onto the branch, and then he did his best to help the hobbit, though he was feeling very sick and ill from spider poison, and from hanging most of the night and the next day, wound round and round with only his nose to breathe through. You know, Kermie, I've realised why you got so agitated before. I nearly said it. I said the weather's going to change because the sun's come out and it's quite lovely all of a sudden. There you go, Kermie. The birdie knew before Mama T did. Right. It took him ages to get the beastly stuff out of his eyes and eyebrows, and as for his beard, he had to cut most of it off. Well, between them they started to haul up first one dwarf and then another and slash them free. None of them were better off than Ophelia. Some of them were worse. Some had hardly been able to breathe at all. Long noses are sometimes useful, you see. And some had been more poisoned. In this way they rescued Kili, Biful, Boful, Dorry and Norry. Poor old Bombor was so exhausted. He was the fattest and had been constantly pinched and poked that he just rolled off the branch and fell plop onto the ground, fortunately onto leaves, and lay there. But there were still 5 dwarves hanging at the end of the branch when the spiders began to come back, more full of rage than ever. Bilbo immediately went to the end of the branch nearest the tree trunk and kept back those that crawled up. He had taken off his ring when he rescued Ophelia and forgotten to put it on again, so now they all began to splutter and hiss. Now we see you, you nasty little creature. We will eat you and leave your bones and skin hanging on a tree. Ugh. He's got a sting, has he? Well, we'll get him all the same, and then we'll hang him head downwards for a day or two. While this was going on, the other dwarfs were working at the rest of the captives and cutting at the threads with their knives. Soon all would be free, though it was not clear what would happen after that. The spiders had caught them pretty easily the night before, but that had been unawares and in the dark. This time there looked like being a horrible battle. Suddenly Bilbo noticed that some of the spiders had gathered round old Bombur on the floor and had tied him up again and were dragging him away. He gave a shout and slashed at the spiders in front of him. They quickly gave way and he scrambled and fell down the tree right into the middle of those on the ground. His little sword was something new in the way for stings for them. How it darted to and fro! It shone with delight as he stabbed at them. Half a dozen were killed before the rest drew off and left Bombur to Bilbo. Come down, he shouted to the dwarves on the branch. Don't stay up there and be netted. For he saw spiders swarming up all the neighbouring trees and crawling along the boughs above the heads of the dwarves. Down the dwarves scrambled or jumped or dropped, 11, all in a heap, most of them very shaky and little use on their legs. There they were at last, 12 of them. Monty has to resolve this issue. Resolve it, I must. Resolve it. There they were at last, 12 of them, counting poor old Bombur, who was being propped up on either side by his cousin Bifur and his brother Beaufort, and Bilbo was dancing about and waving his sting, and hundreds of angry spiders were gobbling at them all round and about and above. It looked pretty hopeless. Then the battle began. Some of the dwarves had knives and some had sticks. And what was that? Oh. And all of them could get at stones, and Bilbo had his elvish dagger. Again and again the spiders were beaten off, and many of them were killed. But it could not go on for long. Bilbo was nearly tired out. Only 4 of the dwarfs were able to stand firmly, and soon they would all be overpowered like weary flies. Already the spiders were beginning to weave their webs all round them again from tree to tree. In the end, Bilbo could think of no plan except to let the dwarfs into the secret of his ring. Have you been kind to each other, you two? Not bloody likely. Ooh! Oh! Straight to whack him on the head he went. Well, that's not very nice, is it, Bo? You'd better come in Kermie's cage. You better take up his sacred space. Get away from the monster. Or better yet, Mummy might separate them. He's looking very cranky and his eyes are spinning, which is not a good sign. One moment. Spinning eyes is a sign of absolute blind rage and viciousness and fury in the bird world, isn't it? We learnt that from our Charlie when she was alive. Come on, out you come. Emma. No. You're not in trouble. You're just going to get out and get in your own cage. There's been too much hostility. So now, we'll keep them separated. How do you feel about that, Bo? He says, remarkably relieved, Mama T. Thank you for being an adjudicant and a peacemaker and interfere in the wars between birds. And they were getting on fine all morning, sitting there quiet like little mice, this far apart, not bothering with each other at all. All of a sudden, anarchy and chaos. Anarchy and chaos, people do. He's up on his swing now. Happy as a little Vegemite, aren't you? Happy little Vegemite. What have I done here? Caught on my phone again. You're going to swing? Show the people of Earth how you swing. Show them what a wonderful boy you can be. He's just staring at Bo going, I'll get you later, Bo. I'll get you later. Listen here, you little Indian ringneck mafiosa bird. That doesn't seem right, does it? It's because I oiled it, isn't it? Yes, that's what happened.